Thank you so much, Dr. Rosen, for such a wonderful introduction and just for having me here. I feel so honored, and I'm just so honored to be here with you guys. I considered actually spending some time reading from a speech, and then I really thought about what Viscardi means to me. And a lot of people might not know parts of my story, so I said I'm gonna just really speak from the heart. If I get a little emotional, I'm really sorry, but this place holds such a special place in my heart. And when I say that it truly laid the foundation for the person that I am today, I can promise you that is the wholehearted truth. I'm gonna go back a little bit. My journey started at Viscardi in 1993. I was 3 years old, and I came here for pre-K, and I stayed here until the end of kindergarten before mainstreaming in first grade. When I got to Viscardi in 1993, people often ask me, do you really remember? Do you really remember stuff from when you're 3 and when you're 4? And trust me, you really remember when people truly make an impact on your life. I am sitting on this stage today because there is a very special person in this room, people in this room. Denise Wolfbus is here. For those that don't know, Denise has an incredible son who has unfortunately since passed. But was not only my very first love. My husband Ty knows this. We skipped a stage. He was never my boyfriend. He was always my first husband. Brandon and I fell in love, and I fell in love with his heart and the way that he interacted with human beings. And for those that don't know Brandon's story, Brandon had cerebral palsy like I did, but Brandon used his eyes to be able to communicate. We had very different ways of communicating, and our life took us on very different paths, but we always found a love for each other. When Brandon and I would lock eyes, it was like no one else was in the room. At a very young age, that really set a tone for me. We've stayed friends pretty much our entire lives. I never really lost contact with his family, and while yes, my life took me in one direction and his took him in another, he really just always stayed with me, and the lessons that he taught me stayed with me. The last time I was at Viscardi was in 2006. I was here for a very special reason, and I was sitting in that back room. For those that don't know, Scott Pollock was also one of my very good friends, and Scott Pollock was a part of the foundation of Viscardi. Scott was born with no arms, and he played basketball with his feet. He was the star basketball player. And Scotty was really cool. He was sometimes too cool for school. But we got to reconnect again when we spent a summer together in 2005. And I truly believe that the universe understood that I needed that summer, because that winter, Scotty unfortunately also passed away. When I was 15, that rocked my universe. I had never experienced a death of a loved one so young, and I didn't really understand what it meant to lose somebody and love somebody all at the same time. But Scott, for anybody that knows him, or Bubba, he lived by failure is not an option. Now, when I was 15 and Scott and I would talk, I asked him, what is your dream? And he would tell me, I'm gonna be a basketball star. Forget, college, I'm gonna be a basketball star. He had really big dreams for himself, and I wanted him to go after those dreams. Now, I have no hand-eye coordination, so basketball was not in my wheelhouse. But I remember when he passed, it was like a switch went off in me, and I said, I gotta do something. And I went to his wake. I was very close with his parents, and I remember looking at his dad, and I said, Scott, I will never let your son's legacy ever die. I said, I'm gonna hold you to that. Ever since that day, I have tried to live with Scott's memory in mind, and now Brandon's memory as well. I have endured so many different adversities in life, but who hasn't? Every single person goes through different adversities, right? Every single person in this room has challenges. It doesn't matter if you have a physical disability or it's a disability that you might not be able to see. Everybody struggles with something. There's this idea of inclusivity, right? An all-inclusive playground, an all-inclusive arena, which, by the way, I think is absolutely incredible. And the next time I come back here, we will definitely be visiting. But I think the world needs to understand that inclusivity doesn't need to be this special thing. It should be for everybody. You're all sitting down in chairs right now, and so am I. What makes my chair different than yours? Really nothing, right? So as I went through college and I went through a master's program, everything I did in Scotty's memory, but he was pushing me forward. He had a mantra in his life: failure is not an option. I have it on a keychain on my car keys when I go drive. I have his hat in the visor in my passenger seat, and anywhere I go, he really drives me to be the best version of myself. And, you know, I often say, my husband and I joke, that CP was pretty much easy, you know, for most of my life. I got very lucky and have had a lot of resources to be able to live the most independent and most wonderful life possible, if I'm being completely honest. And I would, you know, encounter doors every so often that would often be closed, but I never really allowed them to stop me. Because we often plan for failure, but do we ever really think to plan for success? And that was something that I really needed to start believing in myself and understanding that if I wanted something, I was going to be the one to have to go after it. So we often joke that CP was a little easy for me, so the universe said, you know, let's give her something else. In 2016, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 3B. And I remember going into the doctor's office, and she looked at me and she said, "You're incredible." She said, "I've never met anybody like you in my life." She said, "I've never worked with anybody with CP before." And I said, that's it. That was my light bulb to keep fighting. Because I knew that if I could sit down with this doctor and I could educate everyone, from myself to the doctors to the nurses that were working with me, I would be able to help the next person. Because I don't want to be just the first. And I'm not saying that I wish that journey on anyone, but if that journey and my journey makes it easier for the next person to come, I know that my time was worth it. I know that that experience was worth it. Like I said, cancer was not definitely on my agenda, but it helped me grow as a human being. And I truly believe that it allowed me to see a different side of empathy and a really important side of what life really means, and that you need to go chase after those dreams. So when I finished chemo, my husband looked at me and said, "What do you want to do next?" At the time, I was very involved in CrossFit. I said, you know, I think I want to open a gym. And so we did it. But we didn't just open any gym. It wasn't a lift weights kind of, you know, going for the games type of gym. It was anybody that wants to come and do fitness and take care of their body is welcome in my gym, regardless of age, ability, or skill level. It was incredible watching people in their 80s picking stuff up off the ground and putting it back down, because in reality, that's what functional movement should always be about, is keeping ourselves moving, right? Taking an object from your chest level and putting it overhead into a cabinet. That is functional movement, keeping people moving, keeping people independent. What I loved about my gym was it didn't matter if you were an adaptive athlete or an able-bodied athlete. The minute that clock ran down from 3, 2, 1, it was everybody was in the workout together. It didn't matter what you looked like, it didn't matter your ability level, and it didn't matter your skill level. We were all sweating and having a good time. Just like everybody in this room, 2020 came, and it rocked our universe, right? And we had to close our gym. And instead of just closing the gym, we looked at each other and we said, how are we gonna pivot? And everybody was going virtual. And so I tried it, I went virtual. And all of a sudden I started realizing that my facility that I had, my brick and mortar facility, had about 90% able-bodied people, maybe 10% adaptive. All of a sudden in the pandemic, that started to switch. And it was so cool to see people with disabilities, all different abilities, moving their body and keeping themselves healthy. And I'm really proud to say, 3 years later, that business is stronger than ever. It's called Staying Driven Fitness, and I could not be more proud of it. Thank you. We service about a 95% population of adaptive athletes of all different abilities. We service about 100 individual memberships, and then we work with about 8 different corporate organizations that service thousands of people that we get to see on a weekly basis. It's pretty incredible. So I think my life has always been adversity after adversity, but the way that you handle it is just by continually pushing forward. The last thing I'm going to leave you with, because I know we all want to get to dinner, is the idea of chasing the yes. You never know when somebody is going to say yes. You have a question, you want to do something, what's the worst somebody can say? The worst somebody can say to you is no. Well, what happens when they say yes? Are you prepared for that success? Because there were parts of my life that I really wasn't ready for that. And I kind of had to put myself together and say, you know, fake it till you make it. But then I started to learn to prepare for that yes, because someday it's going to come and you're going to make an incredible impact. So if you are sitting in this room right now, excuse me, and you're thinking to yourself, inspiration, motivation, right? I want you to think to yourself more motivation than inspiration. Inspiration is your spark, motivation is your fire, but also think about empowerment. The term empowerment talks about confidence, having strength, and the ability to believe in yourself. So instead of being inspired, I hope you leave here empowered, whether that is to donate or whether that is to get more involved in the school, because you will meet incredible people that will change your life. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm so happy to be back.
Yes, sir.